Welcome back to Zero Gravity Live, the weightless weekly tech talk podcast, bringing all the latest news, discussions, and cool things right to you and your stream. My name's Anthony, joined by my two besties, Sterling and Matt. How y'all doing today?
Doing good, man. Good to
I'm
have you
feeling
guys
great.
back in the house. We talked about how Alabama football was king last week in our football episode.
I am
Great
so
to be back.
sad I missed it. Let me tell you, just tears streaming down my face that I couldn't be there for that discussion.
Listen, I have to agree that it's not my forte, but I did learn a lot, and you guys threw down the knowledge. So great episode and great to be back.
Yeah, and thanks again, Matt, for holding the fort down last week, bringing the guests and bringing the heat with that topic. So all props go to you, sir. Now, this week we got a very special episode with some very special guests. So let's go ahead and bring them in. And to our audience, we want to know, just like every week, where are you watching from? Let us know in the chat platform of your choosing, whether it's YouTube or LinkedIn or Twitter. Type in there, where are you watching the stream from? Because we want to know and we'll give you a shout out. Welcome to the show, Maurice and Jonah. Thanks for joining us this week, gentlemen. How are you both doing?
Well, doing fine. I'm being here live from Amsterdam in the Netherlands, so that's a
What
difference.
time is it there for you right now?
It's 5 p.m.
5 p.m.
Uh-oh.
Got you at 5 p.m. on a Tuesday. It's beer o'clock after this, right?
Actually, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah,
And Jonah, how about you?
I'm doing pretty well, Obviously, it's the first day back at work after Labor Day for the U.S., because I'm based out of Texas, so I'm managing. Tuesday feels an awful lot like Monday, and I can't decide if that's better or worse.
Yes.
But it's only 4 days, though. It's only
True.
4. So it may feel like Monday, but Friday's going to come quicker.
It's true.
I looked at my calendar for this week, coming back from a vacation with the Labor Day on top of that, and I have like 2 weeks worth of meetings and work somehow crammed into a 4-day week. So I'm not excited for that.
You gotta love
I
it.
digress. Let's do what we love to do, especially when we have guests on the show. Let's play a little game called What's in Your Office. And since we have two guests, Jonah, your office is immediately viewable to me. So we're going to start with you. What's
All
going
right.
on in your office? What's the thing to show?
There's a lot of going on in the office, a lot of noise. In fact, I'm even going to have to move the chair. So, of course, you can see, just a quick glance at the background, you've got various Lego sets, bits of technology. There's some posters on the back depicting various Pokemon regions and, my Scout awards from my youth days.
Love it.
Slightly off camera are some more to that side, and a nice little Veeam actually, here I can move my camera. Nice little Veeam community poster. You've got the my guitar that I don't play nearly often enough. Our one of two demo of a little plush we were working on as a company mascot that I think is still in the works for my company. And then behind me, you've got a couple more things. My 3D printer all decked out with some Boy Scout and some
Nice.
stickers on
nice.
the back. And then some projects I'm working on. You can see little pieces of carbon filter I'm assembling for the printer, some more Lego. For the IT crowd fans, you've got the internet right here.
The
And
internet.
there's some technology spattered along the bookshelves too. Like if you look right up here, you've got an analog pocket and a Lumia 950 XL. So the last Windows phone Microsoft made with the Lumia brand that they bought from Nokia.
Man after my own heart. Hey, moment of silence for that amazing phone and the amazing OS that went on it. There's a lot of stuff going on there, Jonah. I feel like we got to have you back on to have a whole episode just on 3D printing. But what is the favorite thing in your office?
Favorite thing in the office? Good question.
It's got to be the dog,
I guess that
right?
would probably be this one right here.
All right, that was a bit of a gimme.
I was hoping. I was going to be very sad if it wasn't. What's the dog's name, Jonah?
That is Rosie.
Rosie.
Nice.
Rosie.
She's adorable.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Jonah. You have a very cool office, so I'm a little bit jealous of those posters. We'll have to talk about that sometime offline. Maurice, I know you are in an actual office, like a work office.
Yeah.
So,
Technically, I'm
you
currently
got
in a
something
meeting
today.
room. I'm currently in a meeting room, but yeah. I'm in the office, yes, indeed.
Yes. You're in the
not
work
much
office.
around me. So no home office, not much around me other than just static walls. So a nice background is just better, right?
Yes, absolutely. And you brought something to show, though, didn't you?
Yeah, I brought, I think, two of my favorite pins from Veeam.
Nice.
Uh, yeah, Alfred,
And
the community.
that cat has a name, right?
Alfred.
Alfred. Yes.
It's just really nice. I wanted to bring something else from home, but I completely forgot this morning. I had a hectic morning before I left. I wanted to bring a good old 8-inch floppy disk that I got from my father back in the day. It could contain a whopping 128 kilobytes of data if you had the double density ones. Which shows how far we have come, because nowadays you can have terabytes in your pocket on nothing, right?
It's so
I can't even fit a Word document on that.
No,
like that's
no,
how much.
It's a text file. You can fit a text file currently.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
If you
Doc-
try to Word document, it's already bigger than 128K or something. So
That is amazing. It really is
Yeah.
a stark reminder of how far we come now. I'm having flashbacks of that installing Windows 95 off of 13 floppy disks. That takes me back to
either
those days.
14 or I think 31.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
See, Doom came on
15,
4, right?
15.
So you only needed to put the first one into play, fortunately, after that. So that's all I needed as a kid.
Yeah, it's nothing like getting like disc 7 of 31
Oh.
failed. Now what?
Oh. Ask all your friends who had a copy of Disc 7 is what.
It's something different than loading your game from a cassette tape, right?
Mhm.
I used to do that when I was a kid. Load colon and then press enter and just wait until the game was loaded in 15 minutes or so, because it take that much of time to load the data from that cassette tape.
Those were the
God,
days.
I love internal storage and RAM that actually, supports real games today. It's great. We're living in the future, and I love it. Sterling, I already know what you're going to show, so let's just get it over with. Show us what you got.
All right. Well, talk about speaking of living in the future. Listen, once again, hats off to Jonah. I was going to bring one of my old Pocket PC Windows mobile phones on here, but I knew Jonah had tipped his hat to doing that, so we'll save that for another time. And I'll go all the way to living in the future and just tell you a little story. So a couple of weeks ago, Samsung hit me up on the interwebs, and Samsung said, you know what, Sterling? We know you've bought some Samsung stuff before. We know you're an Apple iPhone user now, but you still dabble in the Fold variety and some other of the Samsung Galaxy stuff. So hey, we know you have one of your old watches laying around. If you send us this old watch back, we'll send you this brand new Galaxy Watch Ultra for like $400 off, and we're going to give you a free band with it. So of course, I had to jump on it. I'm something of a smartwatch aficionado. Love the luxury smartwatches, love the rugged smartwatches. And this, guys, you got to check it out. It has pretty much, yes, Matt, I'm going to say it, pretty much everything on parity with the Apple Watch Ultra, plus a couple of things that Apple had to take away because of pending litigation. Think like, blood oxygen sensors and things like that. I've been wearing it a few days now. I'm definitely going to report back in a couple of weeks of how it's kind of done through my routines, my workouts, my sleeps. I'm still gathering some data, but guys, it's been awesome. And I tell you what, it's pretty much a conversation piece. I mean, okay, it's always my conversation, but it's still a conversation piece.
Now, I saw some watches from Maurice and Jonah. Are y'all okay, you've got an Apple?
First Gen Ultra.
There we go. All right.
Vintage Apple Watch.
That is truly vintage.
Truly.
My
Wow.
Apple Watch 5 is dead. Meanwhile, your one is
Still
still
works.
kicking
It
it.
still works.
Wow.
Still works?
What did you do? I'm just waiting to get the new one, but that's impressive.
So Sterling, I'll just have you know that the Apple Watch Ultra does do blood oxygen level. I just ran mine and it's 95%.
All right, I'm going to figure out which feature got removed.
No, it did get removed, but I think it's just from the new models that they're selling in stores in
so
order
no
to avoid
upgrades
not
for me.
being able to sell them. Existing models that you purchased before the litigation still have the feature.
Thank you
Very
for
nice.
that.
So, just out of curiosity, why do I need to know my blood oxygen at all times?
Well, the good thing is it'll alert you if it drops,
I guess that is true.
below a safe level.
Yeah.
I think I might be able to tell that too, without the watch.
Yeah.
Just to guess.
If you're hypertensive, you know that directly, right?
Touche.
Start
Touche.
feeling weird. It's like, oh no, my
Uh-oh.
blood oxygen.
Yeah.
Matt, I know
Yes,
you
sir.
got something that's a little bit wild today. So
Yeah,
what's going on with you?
I got a topic of conversation, but before I kick on the sharing, Maurice, you've got a little knick-knack that you shared. I want to share something that I have shared on the show before, but in spirit of this particular week, the entire Veeam tech team is over in Prague for their annual Tech Expo. And I just got to show this once again. This was the inaugural challenge coin from the very first Tech Expo that we had in Sardinia, Italy. And it's so awesome to see Veeam keeping that tradition up, bringing the tech teams together globally. You've got the camaraderie building, you've got the knowledge sharing, the network. It's awesome. So Prague is a beautiful city. So hey, from this side of the pond. So with that, my topic. So for those of you who know anything about network technology and network gear, you either love Ubiquity or you hate them. I don't think there's any in between. For me, I'm a huge fan. And, I know when we were talking earlier, I think Jonah's got some gear in his house as well. But, for me, all my home network is Ubiquity. I've got the access points. I've got the surveillance cams. I've got the network video recorders, the battery backup. It's a full ecosystem buy-in, Sterling, just like it is, for Apple. When we do, Mac products. Let me see if I can figure out a better sharing where we can get all of us on screen. There we go. So the topic, though, is not Ubiquity. It's one of their new integrations. So if you come all the way over here on their website under new integrations, notice they've added premium audio.
Oh no.
And this is my topic of conversation because I've actually wanted to broach this topic before on our show because I feel like it's going to be just like the Microsoft Apple allegiances. When you look at streaming audio, so you've got Sonos, you've got Pandora, you've got Spotify, you've got Apple Music. So you've got all these different platforms to listen to audio. And now Ubiquity has dipped their toe in the pool. And granted, I think the use case for this is very business oriented. This is for office buildings where you can throw up, speakers in conference rooms and lobbies and all this type of stuff, play background music, if you will. That's really the aim. But when I saw this, and this basically is the exact same thing that Sonos has, the Sonos amp. Ask me how I know, because I have two in the house powering our in-wall speakers. But the point is, they're really going far and wide, way beyond just access points and surveillance. And I've got this. They actually have a EV charger. So again, if you're doing a smart office building and you want EV charging stations, they have those. But topic of conversation, you've got Ubiquity jumping into the streaming audio sector. What do you guys think about this?
I think that's pretty awesome. It's really interesting, guys, and I'd love to get your take on these things. We are not bereft for choice. I mean, there's a ton of choices out there, and most of us are already bought into something. I love the fact that if you are going with Ubiquity, you now have the choice to just bring everything in-house. This sort of reminds me, not to digress too much, but Anthony, us at the RSA conference, do we need more tools, or do we need more tools that work together with other tools? And so I tend to fall on the side of the house, Apple, the Samsung, the different things. I just want the best experience from whatever to work with everything else, and not so much trying to decide which is the best of this year. And that's kind of where I lie on it.
Yeah.
It was funny in your intro, Matt. You either love Ubiquity or you hate them, or you're me and you just don't know anything about them. It's like I'm one of the people that if the device doesn't work in HomeKit, then I don't buy it, kind of person. Because I'm, to Sterling's point, I am tired of having to go to different apps on my phone to look at my security cameras, to set my air conditioning, to unlock my door. I want everything in one single place. The more I can consolidate, the better. And if the device doesn't support that, then I don't look at it. But
Yeah.
I think from my opinion, I'm curious where this fits in the other ecosystems out there, or if it's just another market that is entirely to themselves. In which case, I love competition. Competition is great for the consumer, but it's not a great way to get me to buy your product. Maurice and Jonah, I'm curious what you think.
Well, I think honestly, if you maintaining those kind of devices in a large scale, let's assume a large scale, maintaining
Yeah.
those devices in large scale can be a challenge. So if you have a system where you have one control plane, where you can control anything that you need to do with your networking, with your audio, with your door access, and so forth and so on,
Yep.
I think that could be beneficial for a large scale company.
Yeah.
But for a home
Agreed.
user,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Agreed.
when you think about the integration, to your point, Maurice, I mean, the whole idea here is if access user John Smith swipes their RFID code to enter a conference room, you can literally play a pre-planned playlist that they set up, right? So it's all these things kind of working in tandem, but that also kind of goes with Ubiquity and Unify. That whole product line is really more business focused for, office buildings, and that's typically where all their products shine. But I guess I would call myself a pro user here at the house. I'm forcing it into the residential space.
I would 100% call you a pro user, Mr. Price. Absolutely.
so I'm
tracks.
a long time user of their access points, and
Ah,
honestly, I've used so many different kind of access points, and these just work, right?
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
agreed.
Exactly. It, if one breaks, you just plug it in your network, you adopt it, you assign it to the group, and it's gone, works.
Yep. Yep.
And
Agreed.
Jonah, what about you? Are you Team Ubiquity and this new
Yes and
expansion?
yes and no. I mean, so I do have a lot of their devices around the house. I'm in the middle of a project now of putting their security cameras outside. So I've got one of the G4 AIs, I think, in the driveway, their G4 doorbell, and then it's a bunch of G5 Pros, though I've only put up about one of the four so far. And then to go with that, I've got their UNVR out in my rack in my garage and their 24-port PoE switch. But on my side, I'm actually not full Unify for the networking stack. So in part because I already had them kicking around. My mesh is wired, but it's ASUS access points. Though it means unfortunately all my IoT devices are on the same network. So eventually those will be transitioning over. But my lab networking is all 10 gigabit SFP plus. So I've got an old Dell Power Connect switch I picked up for cheap on eBay powering that, and a PowerEdge R220 or R230 running pfSense for the firewall rather than using one of their devices.
Yep.
My takeaway from this is y'all's home network is way cooler than mine is.
Well, and when you think about, okay, so
Sorry.
full disclosure too, when you think about residential, one of the challenges is cabling.
Yeah.
And when you look at, Ubiquity's residential line, they have an Amplify product line that's really all designed for residential stuff. It's plug it in the outlet, it's all mesh, it's all wireless, no PoE, no cable running. Luckily for us, we have an unfinished basement. So that's the only reason that allowed me to do all the cabling to these PoE, access points. The other big topic, though, I think is the last thing I'll mention on it. I told you guys this is a long-winded topic, is the software element, right? Because you can have fantastic hardware, but if the software is terrible, the whole solution sucks, right? So in my opinion, prime
Agreed.
example, Sonos. I love Sonos. I have two of their in-wall speakers in our living room. I've got two in-walls in the rear of the living room to create our surround sound. Their sub, the two amps that drive those speakers, their app is garbage. It's still garbage. Like there's been a huge resistance
I've
for
read that.
people who use Sonos that
Yeah.
just don't like their app. It's just
Yeah.
not intuitive. And when I look at that in translation or in comparison to all the Unify stuff, it's like night and day. I mean, to your point, Anthony, it's almost like, the Apple Home app for HomeKit. Everything is just so intuitive.
Just works.
It's got all your
Yep.
devices organized. You don't have to go searching. It's what a user would expect, out of an app. So again, Sonos is dropping the ball just from a software perspective because
UI
their
is
hardware is
king.
next level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was some backlash from the community too of them either ripping features out of the app or
Yeah.
deprecating some stuff before they
That's
said they
exactly
would.
what happened just recently. Yep.
Yep.
That happens.
The future's still looking bright. It's just looking a little frustrating, that's all. So thanks for bringing that up, Matt. I'm gonna have to actually do some reading of my own on this afterwards because now you got me curious. But we invited Jonah and Maurice on today because they are about to start a very cool project, which is the Veeam Hackathon. This goes on every year, and we wanted to have them on to hear all about it and to share that with our community. So Maurice and Jonah, mind giving us a little bit of background on this, and then we're going to pepper you with some questions because we want to know more.
Yeah, are you guys hackers?
Start with that one.
Yeah, so a big misconception about a hackathon is that it's not about hacking. Like you see in the news that a company has been hacked by Team XYZ or whatnot. I'm not going to call names. A hackathon is an event to build something on top of something else. So you have, in our case, you have the Veeam products, those products that we all use on a daily basis, I hope. And our hackathon is aimed is targeted on you to build something on top of those products. For example, you probably have heard of the Grafana dashboards by Jorge de la Cruz, right? Maybe you've seen them. That's a perfect example of that, or the as-built reports that has been coming out lately.
Yep. And
that's hackathon.
Yeah, that's true. It's the way I think about it is it's very much like it's like a collective of individuals that are getting together to solve a technical problem or come up with a nuanced solution that you might not be able to do during the workday or get the funding for by product management kind of thing.
Yep.
Also, it's a way for you to step out of your comfort zone.
Yes, I love
if
that.
Your day-to-day job is being an IT admin of your Veeam backup or application, for example, you can go and build something as a developer just for a couple of days, just to tip your toe basically in the pool.
Do you need to have any kind of previous experience? I mean, is somebody going to be sort of somebody thrown into the deep end if they don't know programming, or should they start in a different place if they want to be involved in a hackathon?
It's the best thing is just do it.
Yeah, no, not at all. We had some signups last year. They were brand new to even the programming world. They were maybe 1 or 2 semesters into college or university, depending on what part of the world you're from. Zero Veeam experience, and they came in, they knew some programming or they knew how to use Figma. They participated, and in fact, a couple of them actually ended up getting some work sent over to them from some people who are established in the Veeam community already that needed some programming work done for internal company projects and needed some additional resources. But it's not even just about the coding. We have a full rubric that will be going out to all participants and leaders that the judges will use for the project. And it's going to be even things such as, how unique is your idea? Is there a sustainable plan in place for the project? What sort of market research have you done to find a valid business case?
That makes sense. What should somebody keep in mind if they want to be involved in a hackathon? Meaning, what should they do to prepare? Is it just coming with an idea? Is it having an idea of what they want to learn, or having an idea of how to make the community better?
Well, the teams will be assigned on, I think, the 20th of September. And then the team can work together to define their goal for this hackathon. And during the week, I think a week before the actual event, you have time to work with the team, see what you are capable of doing, see what you are interested in doing, or maybe just go out and about and just see what you can do.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
There will be 5 days for a full brainstorming and team building kind of
That's good.
period. I will say real quick, we talked about integration earlier, and we've been talking about home labs. Obviously Maurice and I are not judges, so we can't say where this would fall on the judging rubric. But if anyone's in need of an idea for their team, I would love for my home lab to maybe see some sort of home assistant integration for some of the Veeam suite, so I could maybe integrate it into my smart home dashboards.
Yep.
Ooh,
There's been
that
some
is a
crazy stuff
cool
I've
idea.
seen. I've seen with that. I can't remember. I feel like it was Michael Cade who did this at one point up on stage. He used Amazon Alexa to actually kick off a Veeam backup job, and I'm like, just stuff like that is pretty cool. To see what options are available if you really dig in.
Yeah, functionality too could be cool. I mean, I'm in the process of trying to actually rip out my Echoes and build my own local voice assistant with some of the work they've done in the last year.
Nice.
I'm even
cool.
almost at the point of actually running local LLMs to rip out
Wow.
ChatGPT, because right now I've got local speech to text and TTS for it, but ChatGPT is powering all the conversation and controls of my lights and whatnot.
Nice.
That's pretty cool. So the world is really kind of open-ended. You can kind of focus on anything you want that would make it better, and then push it to the community to continue to improvise on. That's the idea of the hackathon, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but in this case, it needs to be related to Veeam.
Understood. So Matt and I could work on like a UI for Veeam that runs on the old Windows Mobile OS together.
Theoretically.
That's super useful.
I don't know
still.
where that would
Yeah.
fall for your business case, but
Okay, fair. There needs to be a business use case in there. Okay.
yeah.
So, and that was kind of my question is, if someone wants, because there's going to be a winner, there's judges that will come away with it. If we were to encourage the participants to maybe think along a certain line of thought, are there any places where you think Veeam could use a little more hackathon type creations versus others?
I think automation is always a good thing. Like, I know
Yeah.
Michael Cade right now is doing some work to build out some deployment templates for people's home labs. And Maurice, of course, has always maintained the chocolatey packages to quickly install and update Veeam modules. But, in my experience, Veeam has good APIs, or where they don't have APIs, PowerShell commandlets, but it's always been lacking in some of the automation world.
That actually makes a lot of sense. When you even talk about implementing security and things like zero trust, it's all about taking the human element and error out of it. I mean, we talk a lot about that here at Object First as well, and so sort of removing some of the attributes that are just kind of needed. And I could see that really sort of continuing to go more that way with more of the solutions that Veeam continues to introduce, right?
Yeah, one of my personal mottos is, if you have to do things twice, automate it.
Yeah, I love that.
It's a simple motto, and it really works with so many things. For example, you have a backup job and you need to change the retention policy for all those jobs. Are you going to click every single one of them and change that? Or are you going to write a simple PowerShell script to change that retention policy?
Yeah, one I saw someone ask questions about on the Veeam Community Hub, I think 6 months ago or so, was they were writing actually Ansible scripting. So when someone left their organization, as part of the removal of all their access, that would not only automatically remove their M365 tenant, but it would take a backup of their M365 tenant using Veeam before the account was deleted.
Very nice.
That is super cool.
Yeah, all good ideas, and you guys threw out Jorge De La Cruz. I mean, that guy's amazing. Love him, and some of the stuff he's done with Veeam One throughout the years is just next level with those dashboards. So props to Jorge.
Oh, absolutely. He does an amazing job with those dashboards. If I could, I would put them up everywhere.
Yep.
Well, that's super helpful information. And just one more time, I know they can scan the QR code that's on the screen if they're interested in joining, but When is it, and how do they get involved if they listen to this after the fact?
So they can sign up at the QR code, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, signups are set to close this Friday,
Mm.
so 3 days or however long that is. But there's a good chance it's probably going to be extended a week. From there, once they're signed up, they'll get some information from us as we get closer to the event. They'll get an ICS file with the full event timeline. They'll get those participant guides that we talked about. And I believe then the big event is the kickoff on the 20th, and then the beginning of the coding period on the 25th. And of course, there's some other smaller stuff in there, end of coding period, hey, deadline to submit judging. But those are kind of the big two to kick off the event.
And it's 3 days.
3 days.
Okay.
For the coding period.
It's not forever. No, it's 3 days that you work on the hackathon.
With an hour and a half little halftime show about a day and a half in, where we'll have some fun little activities and some presentations from sponsors, including you guys, I think.
That's correct. So, you say it's 3 days, but, I always like to think of this in like the positive. If they win and the idea is good enough, they might get to work on it forever because of the amount of value it brings, right? So that's always the desired outcome. And just curious, is there a way that folks who maybe don't want to participate would like to kind of keep up with the outcome and the activities themselves? Can they follow on anywhere?
Yeah, they can follow the automation desk over at the Veeam Community Hub, because we will update that page with the outcome of the event. And if you're not participating, you can still join our Discord server and hang out with us and see what people are doing.
Yeah, and part of judging presentations is teams will be uploading their solutions to a GitHub repository that the automation desk manages, as well as a YouTube channel. So it'll be fully available to view judging presentations and the final code and everything. And then from there, of course, if someone wants to adapt it or work it further, they can fork the project.
Or ask experts, because
very cool. And I know we do an audio version of this podcast for those people who happen to listen to it in audio form. Just go to, is it veeamhackathon.com, guys, is where they need to go if they can't see the QR code?
That's correct.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome. Well, thank you for bringing this topic this week and for enlightening us on it. I knew y'all did some kind of hackathon, but I didn't know how cool it was. So really glad to have you on. Before we close the show, it wouldn't be a Zero Gravity Live if we didn't go through some latest cybersecurity news. So Matt, I know you got something for us to share this week. What's going on in your side of the world?
Yeah, the sad thing is you don't have to search far, right, for the latest attack. This was popped up in the feed just this morning. I mean, this is September 3rd, right? That's today. So here's another one. Halliburton, major oil and gas giant, had to file with the SEC that they were hit, with ransomware. Ransom Hub, the name of the gang. So they're still trying to do their due diligence and recon to figure out how far and wide this thing went. One of the things I wanted to point out, I mean, you guys can read through the article. All you got to do is Google it. It'll be top of your feed. But there's two things that we talk about a lot on the show. And I feel like, again, we need to reiterate this. And I really want to hear, like, Maurice and Jonah's, idea behind this or feelings on this. When you look at, ransomware avoidance, we always talk about, not having a plan is planning to fail. You need to be ready. You need to be prepared when things go sideways. But when you look at the protection element, there's two key areas of this, at least in my perception. I've talked about this at length before on the show, but since we have some new guests, it's immutability and encryption. So the immutability part is so that it can't be changed, modified, or locked, which is the case here, because once they go in and they lock some of these systems, that actually cripples the business to an extent. And we've seen this time and time again, where that's the whole driver to pay the ransom, is so business operations can continue as normal. But the other big element is encryption, so that the data can't be exploited. When you look at sensitive critical information, social security numbers, bank records and all this type of stuff, you've got all kinds of ways that these bad actors and these ransomware gangs, like in this case, can, exploit a company. It doesn't always just have to be, hey, we're going to lock up your servers until you pay. And arguably, leaking the data public could be 5 times as bad. So I feel like in today's world, we hear, especially in the storage space, immutability, got to have immutability. But
Yep.
let's not forget how critical encryption is before you even reach the storage, and certainly when it's at rest on the storage. And a lot of these other, solutions and older legacy backup storage technologies, if you enable encryption, you've automatically sacrificed so many beneficial features that have been touted as some of the advantages over some of these legacy storage solutions. So I just wanted to throw that up there and get your guys' take on this. What do you see in the space, and how do you look at immutability, encryption, ransomware protection, just from your perspective?
Yeah, just like I don't know who just posted in the feed, a backup with no plan is the same as no backup. So
Yep.
if you have the backup, if you have a plan how to restore, and if you have the encryption keys or the decryption keys actually, then you have at least something to recover. Backups is so important. Backups are, it has saved my bacon so many times. Backups, yeah. What can you say?
We used to say in the space, Maurice, backups are one thing, but recoveries are everything.
Yeah, but recovery without a plan is no recovery. If you
It's
don't
true.
have
I mean,
a plan, if you
you
don't
get back.
have
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
written
All part,
or
right?
export of your wiki or whatnot, how to do that recovery, you have lost so many hours figuring out the wheel before you can recover.
Step one
Well,
is
and
to
just
get coffee, right, Anthony?
That's right.
well, and just as important is, your backups are worthless if you haven't tested them right. So
Very true.
for anyone who may not know that's listening or joining us today, I work for a Veeam service provider. On top of that, I'm part of the Veeam Vanguard program as well as an Object First ACE. So I have a lot of thoughts about this, and I cover it in a lot of podcasts and webinars, and I feel like I beat the topic to death on sales calls too, helping in our pipelines at my company. But obviously a plan is important, so is a test. And beyond that, Veeam is great coming out with the backup zip code. And I won't touch on that too much because I think you guys covered that on a previous podcast already.
Yep.
But I think at times the backup zip code doesn't even necessarily go far enough, because the backup zip code says one immutable or air gap backup. And my argument is always that you should have multiple. Like anytime I'm working with a customer across all tiers of whatever they might be wanting to protect, it's always, how can we immute as many of your backups as possible and keep your backups as local as possible for the lowest possible RTO. So when a customer comes to us for a DRAS offering where they want to use Veeam replication, I always make the argument number one of, okay, you should also be sending us backups too with insider protection enabled, because there is no real good immutability solution for replication just because of how it works in tracking the changes through VMware or Hyper-V snapshots and checkpoints. But beyond that, there's no reason that if they're sending us backups as a service provider that they shouldn't also be figuring out something local for immutability, like an object first appliance, because ideally you never want to call my company and spin up. We want to be like insurance where you pay us and hopefully never have to use us, because if you have to use us, it's a really bad day for you.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Totally agree. I love the Veeam zip code. I can't remember when. I'm sure Vanover coined that term at some point in the past, but we watched it evolve from 321 to 3211 to 32110, and then you've got VRO, which is another Veeam application that can really take it even further, with automated testing. And we always joke about it's always DNS. But the one thing Sure Backup and Instant Recovery and all those things do, they don't test DNS, right? They just test maybe the DNS server's responding on the right port, but does it actually resolve? Who knows, right? So there's definitely tests that need to be done over and above just can you recover from a failed backup? So I totally agree, Jonah.
And I see that a lot when customers test with us, because we do allow them to spin up not only their replicas with us for tests, but their Cloud Connect backups. And we just see a bunch of little things that you wouldn't really think about, but would be a major showstopper in an emergency. Like, You know, a lot of customers these days for their Windows systems are using Duo. So do they have it configured for offline access? If not, do they know what ports they need to open up and in their firewall when they recover to us? Or, you know, one regular conversation I have with them is, okay, your backups are encrypted with us. That's great. We don't store those encryption passwords. How do you store them? Because if you're storing it in a local password vault, how do you plan on decrypting your backups if your system is taken down? Because at that point you have no password vault. Do you have some sort of external thumb drive or some sort of cloud hosted password vault? Like me personally, in both my Firebox and on my keyring for both my home lab and to help a family member who has a business that uses Veeam, I've got break glass thumb drives where major credentials like encryption passwords, the admin account for the Active Directory forest are stored on encrypted vaults, where if need be, if something goes down, they can call me and I can plug in my drive, or they can come take it out of my Firebox if I'm out of town.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I just wanted to let you guys know the zip code Rick Vanover educated me is Bunnell, Florida, which is literally like 100 miles that way. So
It's
if I
literally
just
a zip
walked, I
code.
would be in 32110 land.
Zero. Imagine if you live there and you're part of the just
Yeah.
all kinds of things.
Yes, no,
Yeah.
it's that away. But yeah, you know, unfortunately, these things are not going to go away anytime soon. So we got to do the best we can to stay on our toes. Now, I want to make sure we hit everything today. So, Sterling, what do you got for us this week?
All right, I'll practice brevity here, man. You guys are cracking me up today. This has been just such a great conversation. What I have to share today is we talk a lot about, obviously, the security of the solution, and we talked a little bit about the encryption and sort of the immutability. The other side that we talk a lot about is that zero access to root. Why is that important? Well, keeping the transport and the protocols down to one way in and one way out, and then not giving bad guys a way to leverage a specific account to give you rights that you shouldn't have is paramount when talking about security. And that's something that this RFID security company obviously didn't think too much about. Now, the TLDR version, guys, the TLDR version, there was a particular person that was looking into some of these RFID cards. They're Chinese-made chips. And he found at one particular point that these chips would be able to be cracked only if there was a specific key that was used across 3 sectors or 3 cards. Pretty surely never going to happen, right? Well, this caused him to actually dig a little bit deeper, and as he looked in, what he found was that there was a backdoor key that was actually placed into each and every one of these RFID cards. Furthermore, this is across the entire, let me see if I can find where it is. It is across the entire line of RFID and RFID cards. Now, some of these RFID cards became popular because they had the exact same attributes or highlights of things that people wanted to use, but probably at a lower cost. So this was also seen on the official cards manufactured by NXP and Infineon as well. So this just really kind of drives home when we talk about zero access, it doesn't mean zero access, but there's a hidden door in the back. This is why you can't ever offer a backdoor, period. What do you guys think?
Well, the biggest thing with this one is it isn't even fixable. They cannot fix this.
Hardware.
It's hardware. It's dead. It needs to be replaced. Period.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest issue with this case. I've read about this. My mind was blown.
I know.
How could you even think that this would be a valid solution at all?
Agreed.
Yeah.
So backdoor.
Well, here, Maurice, I'll make your head explode a little bit then. Do you think this is bad? I don't remember what the current state of it is, but the last several years here in the U.S., our government has tried to introduce laws that actually are going to require companies to put backdoors into software and hardware for law enforcement to use. Like there's been major pushback from Apple and Microsoft and other corporations because of concerns like this happening.
As they should.
Yep.
Yep. So that's
Yeah.
That's my piece on the state of the world, and this is really why we talk about that zero access to root in object first case, but also why backdoors and having a secret passage code that gives you godlike powers isn't good on a security device.
Yeah, we can't be doing the, what is it, down, down, up, up, left, right, left, right. That's not going to work in a security space.
That's right.
Yeah,
But it is how you get 99 lives.
Also
Look,
true.
I'm just gonna Sterling. Just
I
point me
I
the way.
thought
I'm gonna
about you,
crack it.
Anthony.
I'm gonna crack it. Let's get
a
on
ton
it.
of flipper zeros being fired up right now in all parts of the country to try to world to try to figure out this thing. It's bad. And to Maurice's point, it cannot be fixed. Hardware.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's baked in. Well,
You
gentlemen,
need to jank it out of your wall and replace it. It's the only solution.
that's the only fix.
Yep.
I have some good news. Well, kind
What?
yeah, kinda. It's kinda some good news. Jonah was talking about this earlier, the cyber insurance. A few security technologies, a big difference in premiums. This comes from Dark Reading, one of my favorite websites about cybersecurity and ransomware. But this is a pretty good guide they've put out there to lower your cyber insurance premium. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. We're chasing time here, but I want to get to the first section of this document. Now, none of us paid for this. None of us are saying, "Oh, look, see, here you go."
Yeah.
Everything we've been saying. This is done independently by Dark Reading. Their first major piece, backup but verify. And it just goes through some of the important things to think about when it comes to lowering your cybersecurity insurance and why backup is so critical as part of that.
Yep.
And they even say in here, recommends 3-2-1 policy. The company found that policyholders with strong backup strategies claimed a 72% lower damages than businesses who do not maintain robust backups, according to the Q4 2024 Cyber Threat Report. This last little paragraph here. The strategy is effective enough that attackers have moved on to double ransom techniques, where they not only encrypt the data to make it unusable, but also steal the data to extort the business. In 2024, nearly all ransomware incidents, 93%, involved data theft. A sharp increase from 2022, when less than half of incidents involved data threats. And then the person they interviewed said backups can have a pretty meaningful impact as a kind of line of last defense if you're getting attacked via ransomware. So, just preaching to the choir here, but it's good to see that it's not just, hey, you can avoid paying the ransom. You can pay a lower premium, right? Like everyone needs to get their backup strategy in order, in line, follow that 3-2-1-1-0 policy, because it's going to save you. It is going to save you money. It seems like an investment, but it truly is something that's going to pay dividends long term.
Agreed. I love to see, once again, going back to RSA, Anthony, you and I were surprised at how many backup data management recovery companies were at a security conference. This speaks, and we know Veeam, we were right there. Veeam was in full effect. Veeam was actually the best booth there. But the point is that we are fully at a point where this is intermingled into the security conversation. What was it, Maurice? A backup plan? Backup with no plan is the same as no backup at all. Listen, this goes into your security plan now. Insurance companies are paying out. Matt's article that he brought up, what was the first line? It talked about how the company had to now disclose that they're hacked. So now there's nowhere to hide. You have to tell people that you've been through some nefarious activity, and you have to show that you have a plan up front. Backup is forefront in all those things.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Couldn't agree more. You got to test and
Test often.
the sheer amount of folks that don't put the same level of emphasis on testing is shocking and also terrifying, all in the same.
Yeah, especially when you have cyber insurance or audits for certain compliances. Like it used to just be, we'd get questions from companies for their audits of, hey, are you using backups? Oh yeah, we're using Veeam. That would be good enough for the auditors. Now it's no, are they encrypted? How are they encrypted? How many copies do you have? What are your RTOs? What's the last time you tested? How did you test?
Yeah.
Well said.
That last one is a biggie too. How did you test?
Yep.
Is it the backup jobs completed successfully? That's not a test.
No.
Did you do a file restore? Did you do a full end-to-end spin up?
Right.
I remember a story that my dad told me from a company that he worked for. It was back in the day when VMS was still active and really being used. They had a tape drive, I think it's LTO. They used the LTO technology or DLT, I'm not sure. But the hardware had a malfunction. If you enabled the verify in the backup job, the hardware would also enable the erase head, which it wrote the data, it verified that the data was there, and then it erased the data again. So there was no backup.
What?
So you have your verify enabled. Verify doesn't say anything. Verify only says that at the time of your backup, the data was actually there.
Oof.
But it doesn't say that it's still there after the fact.
Right.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
That is absolutely terrifying.
Verify if your job is actually recoverable. Do not
Mm.
verify
Well,
that the
and
data is actually recoverable.
yeah, and Veeam has their health check utility, of course, but that just checks against bit rot. One thing I've seen, especially on maybe the MSP side, where you're helping run a small office, maybe you don't regularly update Windows, and a server's been up for 180 days or more. Veeam backups will be succeeding, health checks will be succeeding because, hey, there's no corruption on the chain, but what I've told people is garbage in, garbage out. Maybe your bootloader corrupted from a bad Windows update. So Veeam thinks your backups are good, but then you go to recover and your machine won't boot.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I completely agree with that one, Jonah. I've been using that as an example since I was an SE in Veeam days because, I mean, how many times has a Windows update gone sideways? That never happens. So there's a lot that can go wrong that unless you actually boot it, verify that it actually works right. And again, I mean, it could be something nested that's failed. Maybe it's a SQL server. Windows is fine, but SQL's corrupted, right? So it's like, how are you going to find that out just by a health check?
Yeah, or taking it a step further, maybe your service provider or whoever you're recovering to uses a different hypervisor. I know a lot of solutions out there, service providers, Cloud IBR, they're all VMware based, but maybe you're using Hyper-V, or as we're seeing a shift to Proxmox, I ran the Veeam beta for a while and did a full lift and shift of my own home lab over to Proxmox in the last few weeks. And I saw in a lot of cases where migrating over through a combination of Veeam or the built-in ESX migration utility in Proxmox, you know how often my machines decided they just didn't want to boot after the migration? Like, I saw plenty of Windows inaccessible boot drive blue screens, or plenty of similar in Linux.
Yep.
Yeah, but what about hardware failures? If your device is still running physically on the machine, if you don't do reboots for whatever your array controller is still reading the data, but at a power cycle or a reboot, it just fails.
I saw one last.
I
I saw one last year. Talking about application failures. I don't remember what software it was, but one of our customers recovered into our environment. For whatever reason, the machine was trying to boot using a MAC address that's considered reserved in vCloud Director. So we had to reset the MAC address on the NIC. However, their application was licensed, because it detected the new address, it wouldn't let them apply their license and let them start the software.
Yeah.
Wow.
Test.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Yep.
Well, it has been a great discussion, as always, and big shout out and thank you to Maurice and Jonah for joining us today. You guys rocked. Loved having you on. We'll have to bring you back in the future, and we all want to know how the hackathon goes, so please keep us abreast of that. Thanks as always to Matt and Sterling, my two fave co-hosts here, for bringing the show week after week. We're going to be taking a bit of a break, so there will not be an episode next week, but we will be doing something the week after, so stay tuned for that. But as always, thanks to our audience for tuning in and watching the show. Thank you again, Maurice and Jonah, one last time.
Thanks for having us.
And for the rest of y'all,
Thank
stay
you.
frictionless, stay weightless, stay zero gravity.